Right, so this is my workspace. I've just drawn in where the trees are on it. These are the colours that I'm going to put out. Now I used some yesterday, so I've not cleaned my palette. I'm just going to reuse some of the colours there. If I need something cleaner, I'll get it out of the back. So I've used titanium white, lamp black, Prussian blue, ultramarine blue. I've vermilion red, but just a tiny bit. Ultramarine, sorry, this one is called Crimson Red Lake, lemon yellow, and this one was a mid yellow, but I didn't use that, so I'm using the yellow ochre, and then a sap green and burnt umber, and the violet colour, the mauve violet colour that came with the these are all from this Gouache Essentials set. Okay, oops. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to just put out a couple more, the colours that have run out, and then the other ones you just put water with them to reactivate them. So I've run out of white, so I'll put a bit of white in there, and I've run out of lemon yellow, so I'll put a bit of that in there. Then the other one, the only other one that I seem to use a lot of was the sap green, and possibly I'll need to add more of the mauve in a minute to get that one done. As you can see, I hardly used any of these, so it's only a very tiny bit of these that you need, and I wouldn't put out the mid yellow again, just the yellow ochre. So I'll put the green over this side here, up on the corner, so that I can use the mixing well. Right, so first of all, I'm going to use quite a thick brush to wet the background between the trees. I'm going to use this one. So this is from Specialist Craft, number 8. And I'm just going to wet the spaces in between. And this one here. A bit more water on that one. And a bit of water here. And a bit of water here. Now I'm going to start with this section here, which is where I want the sun to look as if it's coming through the trees. I have a photo printed off there that actually has some of it. It's the same scene, but it's not the one that we're using, because the one we're using has got more of a slope in it. But so it just so that you can see what I'm doing really, because you can't see the one on the screen. So it's quite yellowy green here. So I'm just going to reactivate the green colour in my board from yesterday, just by adding water to it, and see if that comes out dark enough. And then I'm putting that colour on. Where it's wet, it spreads. And then I'm going to put some of that around here. Oop, I've gone over my tree a little bit there, don't mind. I've also some kitchen roll handy, so if you do need to, you can just dab off bits and pieces, should you want to. A little bit more green there. This is quite dark here, but I'll put a little bit of light green in it, and then we'll darken it up in a minute. And then it goes quite dark there. I'm going to then add some of the yellow ochre and put that around in the bottom of this one as well. If it's not spreading as you'd like, then add a bit more water. I'm just adding a bit more here. Keep it going. And then this one here is quite dark in between. So this is where the sort of the dark group of trees comes. So I'm going to put some, I've got some black mixed with the brown here. So I'm going to just reactivate that one and put that in. Now I want it to come up a bit. Now I'm going to add a bit more brown to that one, although it's more green than browner. It does just stop there, but it's, I might put a little bit of dark coming into there to give it a bit of consistency. And a bit more over this side, it comes out a bit more. And then it's going to need some dark green there. So I'm going to get some of my green and add a little bit of the ultramarine blue to it. And splodge all that on. Now, again, I might need to add a bit more water. Do a little bit down here, and then I'm going to do some black back there. So this is the lamp black here. I'm going to use a smaller brush on this bit, a roundy one. So this is my number 6 round brush. Let's get some of that colour there lodged in, and hopefully it will spread a bit around. Now then, in a few seconds, I'm just going to leave it for drying. If I try and do anything else to it, everything will just mix on the page, and that's not really what we're aiming for. I'm just going to put in these straights for the trees here. They're not, now they will blur and we'll need to go over them again. But just to, try and give it a bit of a little bit more the dark over this side, coming in here. It's a wee bit browner there. Might just add a bit of the yellow ochre to give that a bit of a browner, and the burnt umber and the yellow ochre. Now, while that's drying, I'm just going to block that a little bit because I want it to be the light coming in there. And then this here needs to be a bit blotted because the light's kind of coming up around the trees. So after I've dabbed off some of the paint, I'm going to try and spread the paint. Now the end of my paintbrush has a pointy edge to it, but you could also use a cocktail stick, or you can use a pencil sharpener and sharpen the end of a wooden paintbrush to do this. So I'm just dragging the black paint here with the edge of the brush up, just to give me a few lines of twigs that'll be in the background. I'll do some here and some over the other side. Okay, so I'm going to leave that for now and then come back to it in a while. I might actually, I wonder if I can. Okay. Right, so I'm just going to leave that now to dry. Okay, so I've let that dry while I've made a cup of tea. Yeah, it feels pretty dry. So what I'm going to do next is I'm going to put in the bluebell. So I'm going to use the mauve mixed with a bit of the Prussian blue to do that. I'm going to go back to this big number 6 round brush, and I'm going to reactivate the colour from yesterday just by adding water to it. Now, if it doesn't work, I'll just mix in a bit more of the mauve and see where we go. And I'm going to just use it wet to start with, and then we'll go from there. So I want some bluebells here, and I want some here, and I want them around the base of this tree, and coming up here. They kind of get quite light into there, but then there's more coming down here, and more down here. And then around this tree here, there's more going up to the back and more coming down into the front. Now, because the bluebells are the main thing, I'm going to give them a wider thing than they probably have in reality. So we'll just make that line twice as big, because I want this painting to be about the bluebells and the light here. So I'll just give them more space. Now I am kind of dabbing it a little bit, but I'll leave a little bit of green in there. And then we'll do some more bluebells there in the front in a while. I'm also using the side of the brush on this one. And a bit more here. And just a light bit there, because that's quite light there. So I'll do them purple, and then I'll use my cloth to just dab them out a little bit, because I didn't. Let's see how that looks at the end. Okay. Now I'm going to add some light green. So I'm going to use my sap green and lemon yellow. Sap green, did I say, or sap green? Sap green anyway. And lemon yellow. Nice bright green going here. And then I'm going to put that here under these bluebells this side. I'm kind of doing the same sort of motion with a quite the big brush here. And I'll put some in here and over here. I think that might be the darker green there, coming up to the very bottom of the bluebells. Maybe even a little bit more yellow and a bit more water. And I'm going to put some of this colour in here in the U shape. And coming down to the bottom. And then I'm going to dab it away just a little bit. See if it will let me. So what I'll do is I can add a bit more water to that. Now my brush is a bit dirty there. So I'm just mixing it with a little bit of water. And now if I dab that, that should, just to get the hard edge off it. Okay, and then I want some more of the green to come in under this tree. So here. And coming up to this one. Once I've done the trunks, then I'll put some of those in as leaves going across there. Put more water again to here. Blur it a little bit. Okay, and a bit of green over this side here. No, I'm gonna stop there, I think. Says she, add in a bit more over this side. Now I'm going to add a bit of a darker green to the very front. So I'm going to use the sap green and mix it with a bit of ultramarine. I'll do that here in this little well. Sap green and ultramarine. We'll do some of these go in different directions. And it's quite dark around the base of this tree here. And I'm going to add a bit of a, mix up a bit more of that colour because I ran out of it. Sap green and ultramarine. And I'm going to put some of that over here with the trees. So I'm just building up some of the layers here in the different areas. Now, each time you go back to mix up the colour, it's going to be slightly different. So try and mix up enough colour the first time. If it's critical areas, I mean, trees are usually pretty forgiving. Put a bit more of the colour on this one. And then I've got some more of the darker one coming into this tree area. Just a little bit though. Now, so I've got my colours in there. Now I need to put in the tree stumps to help make it make sense. So for the tree stumps, I'm going to use the ultramarine. And for the lighter colour, I'm going to mix it with the, what's it called? Burnt umber. No, not burnt umber. The burnt umber mixed, what am I saying? So I'm going to mix the burnt umber with the yellow ochre. And I'm going to put that on the trees. Now that's probably too rich a colour, so I'm just going to add a little bit of black to that, just to dull it down a bit. Yeah, that looks nice. Right, so I'm going to put that all over the trees for now, and then I'll go back into them and add a darker colour. Oops, that one got a bit out of control there. So you can't see that, it's not even on the screen. Here we go. So then this one here has a darker spot here. And this one here comes right down to the front, but it is actually quite a bit darker, this tree. So I'm going to just make it darker to start with. So I just added a bit more of the black to the colour that I had for the tree. So he's going to need to go quite a bit darker shade-wise to tie in, but there are white spots on him, so he's not necessarily going to stay that dark. Okay. And also then I'm going to add some trees in the distance. So I'm going to use a finer brush. So I'm switching to the 0, and I'll use the lighter brown here and put in some of the trees that you can see in the middle. Okay, so I'm going to start at the bottom and work my way up because the paint will be stronger here, supposedly anyway. You know, some of them are And I'm going to put some in here. Coming up, these are more branches than trees though, but we'll put in a few trees coming up. And I want to put a few branches going across. So if I start here for the branch, give them a little bit of a wiggle, and then there's 1, 2, 3 coming out that way, and then a few more branches this side. And then in that bit is some whiter trees. Okay. So I'm going to do a bit more dabbing around where I put these branches to give me some leaves. So I am going to just use the lemon yellow and the sap green again. Now, some of them look like they're not attached to anything. That's okay too. And then as they're getting into my lighter bit, a few more splodges. Fun this is. Just splodging away with the paint. Oh, off the page, splodging. It's not so good for you guys. Okay, so then I'm going to put some more splodging down here. Because it's got the other colours coming through, it's not appearing quite as bright as it is on the areas where you've got the light coming through. That's okay for me. And I'll just put some splodges coming down here. And try not to get them too even. Now there's some bits there. Now I could just use the paint straight out of the tube to give them a bit more of a going on thing there. But I'm going to put a little bit down here. And then this tree here, it's quite green at the bottom, so I'm going to add a bit of green there. And then that should still come through a little bit by the time that we've put the shadows in. And that tree's more of a darker colour at the bottom. This is that one. And this one here. Okay. So now we've got the bones of our picture in, so now we're just going to need to do the details on it to bring it to better. So what I'm going to do is I'm looking at the trees here. They need to be quite a bit darker. So I'm thinking, is that a green color? It's kind of green, greeny brown. So I'm going to use the black mixed with a bit of burnt umber and a bit of sap green and see what color I get there. And a bit of sap green. That's quite a grey one. I'm just going to try it on this tree over this side. Just a little bit. It's actually, what do you think? Yeah, okay, I'm going to go with that. Oops. And this branch here starts off quite dark, so he's gonna there. So that's that one beefed up a bit there. Now this one is darker, but only really quite a bit darker in this area. And then it's got some more dark here where the ivy is. And a little bit here. And then here. Just on the bottom of those ones. Now this one here has got some dark as well. And its dark is kind of coming down here around this one. And in here. And then I'm going to add a bit more detail over here. Coming up there. Now that looks a little bit too sharp, so I'm going to have to blend that in a little bit. So I'm going to add a bit of water to that and just dab it slightly. Okay. And then this one here at the front that's very dark. Coming down through. Now he has got some green on him, so we'll just plot that in at the end. And he's quite dark around his bottom. Base, I should probably say, the base of the tree, not the bottom of the tree. And they'll get better. And then this one here. He's a bit orangey at the bottom. He's got some of those ferns. Now this one here has got some, it's one of them trees with the white bits that come off them. Are they silver birch probably? So it's not an exact copy of the scene that I'm looking at, but it's based on it, let's just say. It's based on it. I'm not trying to reproduce every little dark bit and every little light bit and get all the details of it. I'm just trying to get an impression more of the scene. So this is a darker colour then here to put in with these ones. And then I want to go quite up close behind the tree with the darker colour. Now, how's that looking? Yeah, that's still a bit dodgy, that tree there. Oops, I've just dropped my brush. I better pick that up before my dogs do. So I've just taken some of the colour off that tree for now. And I'll leave that to dry a minute and then I'll come back to it and see if I can do something else with it. I think I just went too dark with it because it needed that. That light is working quite well there against the dark. I can just straighten that side up there. That's better. And then put in a bit of dark next to it here. We're very risky doing it while it's still wet snow. Come around there. Okay. So that's given me quite a nice dark bit there. Now I'm going to go in my gouache and put the white areas in a little while. But I'm going to need to let that dry. And I'm going to need to put some verticals here, some horizontals on these trees here, because they're not all. Now I don't need too much of it, so I'm going to wipe a lot of the paint off. Now I'm using this flat one. Do a few different angles. A few suggestions of things really, rather than actually trying to draw all of it. And a few more bits coming out at the bottom. I'm actually going to add a bit more of the yellow ochre, I think, just to brighten it up a little bit here. Just very thin lines of it. So I'm using the straight brush here. This is a 6mm flat edge, and I'm just using the flat edge to tap away just a tiny bit of these. And then I'm going to add a few more of those over this side, just so that they're not just in the one space. Now it's there we go. And then I want these to come in here quite so these are the ferns under this tree here. So they're actually more of a redder brown. So I'm going to put them in. And there's a little bit of red here at the front now. Just a little bit though, not too much. These are old leaves, and I think I've gone too dark on that one. So I'm going to just clean my brush, dab it on, and dab a bit away. Just in case I don't get round to blending that in too much. Now I better drink some of my tea before it gets too cold and leave this to dry for a minute, and then we'll go into some more detail in just a second. Where's this? Stop recording for a sec.